Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to our first virtual Friday mini lecture. So today we're going to keep talking about the rights that we have in property. Okay, so remember we're talking about real property. We say it's made up of three things: the land, the improvements, and the rights, the LIR. Okay, and so today we're going to keep focusing on the idea of the rights. What rights do we have in a piece of property? Okay, and to really understand that, we have to know what kind of possession and ownership we have in a piece of property. So we're going to talk about that today. So my first question to you, though, is what would you do if someone told you that your time was up on the property? Like, you're done, you just have to leave. Well, if you just spent, a couple $100,000 on a piece of property, you're probably going to be pretty upset, right? So one of the things about real property is that it's enduring, okay? We get to have these rights for as long as we own that piece of property. And that could be, until our death. That could be, 60, 70, 80 years from now, you could still hold a piece of property in your name. You could still own it. Now, of course, we don't live forever, but our property goes on. So technically those rights and property continue on. And what we normally are going to do is we're going to pass it on to our children or our grandchildren, right, when we die. We'll talk about that more later. But for the main part, what we need to know is that property rights are enduring. And it's characteristic of the nature of property rights that the government is obligated to enforce them. Okay, so before they gave us the right to, when they gave us the right to the real property, they promised to enforce our rights in the property. That's why we can go to court, right, and ask somebody maybe to stop trespassing on our land or whatever the problem may be. Okay, so the government is obligated to enforce the rights, our rights, in a piece of property. Usually property rights are going to be non-revocable by private citizens. That means that I can't sell it to Dr. Wald, for example, and then come back a couple of days later and say, I changed my mind, I want you to give it back to me. She doesn't have to, okay? And I could just see her going, no, I'm not giving it back to you. But she doesn't have to do that because I can't revoke the rights that I gave her to that piece of property after I sell it to her. But the government can reduce. Remember, we talked about before they gave us the right to private ownership that they kept four things. They kept the right to tax, they kept the right to eminent domain, they kept the right to police powers, and they kept the right to escheat. They kept the right to get the property back if somebody dies without any heirs and no will. We'll talk about those four things later. I just want you to have them on your radar now to know that the government does have some rights in our property. Like, it's not a completely disconnected thing. The government's going to protect our rights, and in turn, they kept some things that they can require us to do. Okay, so now, let's see. When we're talking about the concept of rights, when we're talking about real property, we talked about the fact that they include the rights of use, possession, and enjoyment. And when we talk about rights, we talk about them as a bundle of sticks or a bundle of rights. And if we picture this bundle of sticks, just imagine that on each one of these, something is written like the right to sell, the right to mortgage, the right to give an easement through, the right to exclude somebody, the right to build, okay? And on each one of these little sticks is basically a right that you have in the property, okay? And as a bundle of sticks, what you can do is you can reach in and pull one of those sticks out and hand somebody else a right in your property. So when you mortgage your property, you're going to pull out that right to mortgage stick and you're going to hand it over to your lender and say, I'm giving you the right to take my property if I don't repay the loan. So I'm giving you the right of collateral in my property. So you're taking that one out and you're handing that over, and they can enforce that right in your real property. Okay, so picture these rights as a big bundle. And within that bundle, there are a couple that I want you to consider. Couple of concepts that I want you to consider, excuse me. The first one is interest. When I use the word interest, when I say you have an interest in real property, I'm talking about a bundle of rights. I'm talking about some rights that you have in property. It may not be a bundle, it may just be one, but you have an interest in that real property. Okay, you have a right to it. If I use the word ownership, I might use it interchangeably with the word title. Title just means ownership, just like you have a title to your car, right? Your title shows ownership. So same thing, title and ownership. And then we're going to talk about possession. When we talk about possession, that's estates that we have in land. Okay, so possession and estates are interchangeable. Now, when I talk about the word, when I use the word possession, and we're getting ready to talk about possessory estates, possession is really important because that is the right to control the property. So when I talk about possession, that's the right to control. Okay, the right to control who can come on your land, the right to control what you can do with your land, all those kinds of things. So possession is control. So as we get started talking about this bundle of rights and all these sticks that we can delve out to other people, we're going to look at them in terms of possession and non-possession. So possessory estates and non-possessory interests. Okay, possessory estates and non-possessory interests. And our first category that we're going to look at today is possessory estates. Okay, so let's start with our possessory estates. And when we talk about a possessory estate, it includes possession of the property. Okay, you have the right to be on that property. You have possession. You have the key to the house. Okay, now possessory estate could be that you own the piece of property, and we'll talk about that, or it could be that you lease it, but you have possession of that property. You are the one who's using it. Okay, so those are the types of things that we're going to look at as far as a possessory estate. So a possessory estate can be one that has ownership or title, or it could be one that doesn't have ownership or title. So again, like a lease. Okay, but when we talk about another characteristic of a possessory estate is that it can be of indefinite length. Okay, now right now you may have a lease that's 12 months long, but you can, that doesn't mean it absolutely ends at 12 months. You could extend it, extend it, extend it, extend it, right? So it could be for indefinite lengths. Hopefully your home is going to be of indefinite length though, right? And we also have the right in a possessory estate to dispose of it. Now, there might be some restrictions if you have a lease, right? But you can give it back to the owner of the property. You could dispose of it that way, can get rid of it that way. Now, whether or not you can sign your lease over to somebody else depends on what your lease says, but usually there's a right to dispose of it within that possessory estate. Okay. Now, the three types of possessory estates that we are going to look at with ownership. So there are possessory estates with ownership and possessory estates without. So we're going to divide them up there. The three that we're going to look at now, there are others, but the three that we're going to look at are the fee simple absolute, the fee simple conditional, and the life estate. So our possessory estates with ownership for our purposes are the fee simple, sometimes you see it as fee simple absolute, fee simple conditional, and life estate. Okay, so let's talk about what each of these, what kind of characteristics each of these have. So the fee simple, or if you see it fee simple absolute, is the largest bundle of rights. It's the biggest bundle of sticks you can own, you can have. Okay, and so you're going to have just about everything in that bundle of sticks unless somebody's kept something or whatever, except for those 4 that the government kept, right? And it's also the most common. So I think of a fee simple as the chocolate chip cookie of possessory estates with ownership. Okay, so the fee simple or the fee simple absolute is the largest bundle of sticks. It's the most common. When you buy your first house, you will more than likely get a fee simple. Okay, or if you already own your home, you probably have a fee simple. So it's the most common. The fee simple is the largest bundle of sticks, the largest bundle of rights, and it is the most common. Okay, now there's also something called a fee simple conditional. So the fee simple conditional has a special condition attached to it. So before the seller of that piece of property gave that bundle of rights to the new buyer, they kept one of the sticks. Okay, so one of that sticks in that. It's still a pretty large bundle, but before it was given to the new owner, the buyer, one of those sticks was kept. And that stick, it has a special condition attached to it. Okay. And what it says is that as long as you use the property like I told you to, you own it. But if you do this condition, if you do this thing I told you not to do, then the property comes back to me. Okay, or somebody else I've named. And there are a couple of ways that this works. I want you to know the overall thing, the idea that there's a condition attached to a fee simple conditional. But it could be that before you sell it to somebody, you kept that stick, and then like you can own this property for so long as you do not operate a bar on it. Okay, and if you decide that you want to open a bar, then you have to give the bundle of sticks back to the original owner. But as long as you use it as a coffee shop or something instead, then you get to keep the property. It could be the other way around as well too. Let's say that you wanted to sell a piece of property to maybe like a church or a school or something. So let's say you were going to sell a piece of property to a school, and you said, well, I will sell you this piece of property, or I'll donate it to you, but you can't have it until you actually build the school. Okay, so once you build the school, then the piece of the bundle of sticks is yours. But I'm going to keep the bundle of sticks until. So there's a condition attached to it. You have to build the school before you actually get the bundle of sticks. Okay. And then our third type of possessory estate with ownership is a life estate. So a life estate is tied to the life of someone. So that ownership is tied, that possession, excuse me, that ownership, that possession is tied to the life of someone. And we call that someone, well, it's usually going to be the life tenant, okay? And this tenant, the life tenant, has the right to possess, use, and enjoy the property as long as that whoever it is living. Usually it's the life tenant. I'll give you an example in just a second. Hold on just a second, okay? And then after that person dies, then the property goes to the remainderman, okay? So that person's called the remainderman. And that at the death of the life tenant or somebody else we've named, normally it's the person who has possession. So let me give you an example. Let's say that my parents want to leave me a piece of property for the use and benefit during my lifetime. Okay, and then at my death, the property would go to my son. Okay, so at my death signals that it's a life estate. So I have the right to use and possess the property during my lifetime, and then when I die, it goes immediately to the remainderman, who is my son. Okay. So, but the thing about life estate though is that it also has it is a bundle of sticks, and I still have the right to sell it. I still have the right to mortgage it, but whoever I sell it or mortgage it to only holds it for my lifetime as well. Okay, so let's say that that particular situation exists. My parents deeded me a piece of property for my life. Okay, so during my lifetime I can use and possess it, and then at my death it goes to the remainderman, who is my son. Okay. Let's say that I don't want the property anymore, or for whatever reason, but Dr. Wald's interested in it, and so I sell it to Dr. Wald. Okay, she gets to use the property for my lifetime only. Doesn't transfer to her lifetime. She only gets to use it for my lifetime, and then whenever I die, it still goes to my son. Okay, so my question to you is, would you want to buy a life estate? Maybe you want to buy the remainder interest, but would you want to buy the life estate? If you were a bank, if you were a lender, would you want to give someone a mortgage, a loan based on a life estate? Probably not, because even though we might be young and healthy, we could be walking down the street and trip and hit our head. Accidents happen. So it's a very questionable type of ownership sometimes. So okay, so those are our three types of possessory estates with ownership. They have the right to control the property, and they have actual ownership of the property. Okay, So right to use, possess, and enjoy, and they actually have ownership as well. 3 types: fee simple or fee simple absolute, fee simple conditional, and life estate. So let's see. If you have any questions, please let me know.